Don't be sheepish about Live Arena. Let's thrive in it. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on my alt because I felt this was a good mix of endgame and accessibility to talk about Live Arena. Now, Live Arena has a bit of a bad rap. To be fair, I think Plarium has not helped with that by forcing everyone to do Live Arena rather than incentivizing them to continue to play. But Live Arena can be fun when you just kind of give in and focus on it a little bit. Do what you need to do to make it easier for yourself. Understand that you're not going to win all the time because you expect about a 50-50 rate of wins to losses, and you just kind of let go of the fact that you're not going to be able to control every fight, and some fights you're going to either dominate and some fights you're going to get dominated in. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about how to make Live Arena the best experience for you. So we're going to talk about some pretty generic tips about what to do as far as picking champions, and specifically we're going to focus on gold level arena, where picking champions is limited by both what you pick and the other team picks. So let's get into it. So the first big tip that will make your life significantly easier in Live Arena is to make sure that champions that you would want to use in Live Arena, or in honestly any arena, are marked with the arena tag. Ideally, I like arena build 1. Arena build 2 is not a bad option for a second level champions, but arena by default sorts by that tag. And then we'll put the arena first and then the arena second. And if you have a lot of arena champions flagged, it can be difficult to kind of sort through them. But getting them all towards the front and making sure they are not in your vault makes it a lot easier and faster for you to pick the champion you want, or at least see your options without having to go searching for it or wonder why a particular champion isn't available, and then you have to go in and change the filters, and before long you've run out of your time and it's auto-picked somebody for you. You don't really want that. So marking them with this arena tag is a great way to make the picking process significantly lower stress and faster, so that either if you're spending time, it's because you're spending time thinking of which champion you want to use and not which champion that you can find because you can't find the champion you're looking for and fiddling with the dials. So just so you're aware, we're going to be doing this in Classic Arena just because shooting a video while trying to explain this stuff while doing a live arena fight is asking for disaster. So we're going to be doing this from Live Arena. Just imagine the fact that there is a 5th pick available here, and we'll just kind of talk about it a little bit. One of the first things that you need to kind of think about as far as strategy is concerned is understand that they can ban a champion. So that means that if you have a champion that is important to your strategy, you really kind of want to have a variety of those type of champions available just in case one of them gets banned. So that means, for example, you don't want to bring just one damage dealer. If you bring a single damage dealer, the enemy bans that damage dealer, and the best you're hoping for at that point in time is a draw because they can't kill you because you're too tanky, and you can't kill them because you have no damage. That's not fun. That's basically asking for somebody to leave the fight, and that's a great way to be frustrated on your end and frustrated on their end as well. So you want to bring 2 damage dealers. You're generally going to want to bring probably 2 supports of some kind. And then there's flexible. Maybe you're going for some speed. Maybe you're going for some control. If you're going for some control, you might want 2 control champions. And again, a lot of these things can overlap. You can have a speed and control champion. You can have a support and a damage dealer. And in fact, champions that can fill multiple roles can make the game a lot easier in Arena. That's part of the power of Mythics, is Mythics can often fill 2 roles with a single champion slot, making them a lot more flexible. For example, I like to use Nell a lot in Arena on this particular account because Nell provides me with the strip support I need. She provides me with other debuffs. She provides me with poison. She can provide me with some turn meter control, and I can turn her into a nuker and she can provide an awful lot of damage as well. So she can be a very flexible champion on this particular account, so she is very, very helpful as well. Harima is another example of a powerful champion that is a very good nuker, but also brings some support and some damage mitigation as well because of her passive. So with a well-rounded kit, she can be very good as well. One of the things that is the current meta for Arena is speed. So really, you can certainly aim for a go second team, but for the most part, building a team to be super slow is really asking for a disaster in Live Arena. arena, because there's so many ways to do things like strip stone skin now, champions that can ignore stone skin, bombs can burst through stone skin, burn can burn down stone skin. There are ways to counter stone skin, so even if you're building a go second stone skin team, it doesn't mean you want them to be silly slow. The maybe one counter example of that is UDK. UDK can still be very valuable in a very, very slow build, but he's about the only champion you build very slow. A couple of years ago, the stone skin meta resulted in people building duchesses with 130 speed, for example, and huge stone skin, high resistance. That just doesn't work very well, because if I've got a champion that's got 350 speed and you've got 130, I'm lapping you almost 3 times to 1, maybe 4 times to 1. Well, even if I can't necessarily hit through your stone skin on the first try, I might be able to hit through it on the second, third, fourth, fifth try, and you're giving almost an entire team a chance to whack you down too early. So you do need to build some speed. You probably do not want to bring champions into gold arena that are below 200 speed. And honestly, most of your supports should be aiming for 300 speed if you can in gold. Obviously, it's going to depend on what level of gold you're in. And even your nukers, you want at least 200 speed. If you can get them to 250 speed, speed boots are fine on most nukers, because most nukers can usually do enough damage to kill enemy teams, even without attack percent boots or whatever stat boots that you might have otherwise. So pay attention to your speed, pay attention to your stats. It is definitely one of the important strategies in the game. So once we get to picking champions, what kind of champions are you looking for to pick? Well, as I mentioned, speed is super important. So speed auras can be very, very critical. Right now, you've got an Arbiter on the other team, for example, and they've got a Sun Wukong. So I know that they're going to have a high speed aura either way. And that's something you might want to consider when you're picking a champion. So if I'm picking my Arbiter, for example, I might want to have a second speed aura champion. So for example, oftentimes an Armand's can be a very good pick as well. Sun Wukong has got a particularly good aura as well. You could go with Ostrid, who's got a very good arena aura, or maybe you're just going to go with Fabian. Fabian's got a 19% aura. You certainly are losing out a little bit of speed on his 19% speed aura versus Arbiter's 30, but it's certainly better than going with, say, an accuracy aura, for example. An accuracy aura would be significantly less speed, and unless you know that you're going to be going second, or you know that the other stat's going to be very helpful for you, speed is probably going to be your best bet, just because speed in arena can be one of the biggest limiting factors. So with that said, you are looking to pick 1 to 2 damage. Well, you're picking to pick 2 damage dealers, at least. You certainly can pick a third one if you want to. Picking a couple of supports, maybe at least 1 speed champion, maybe 2. Ideally, a reviver would be very helpful. You're looking to pick a well-rounded-ish team, realizing that one of your team members will probably get banned. So understand that you're not going to get everybody you want on your team. So that's great. You've got generally an idea. You've probably even highlighted some champions you want to pick. And I do think it's good to highlight some of the champions you want to pick ahead of time, to kind of think of, I want to pick this champion, I want to pick this champion. Which ones do you pick first, and how do you select those champions? So one of the first things I recommend doing is, if you have the very first pick, I recommend picking a champion that is both very crucial to your team and possibly popular and available easily. So for example, Arbiter is actually a pretty good first pick for a lot of people, because everybody has an Arbiter. And if I pick Arbiter, that means in gold, you can't. So getting Arbiter as your first gives me the speed aura, it gives me a speed champion that they have to think about, and it gives me somebody that they can't pick if that was crucial to their team. Because Arbiter does an awful lot with the 30% speed aura, as well as all the increased speed and the revive she does. She's a very good champion. And in fact, in top-end live arena, Arbiter has surpassed Siphi in general use, because Siphi doesn't have a speed aura. So doesn't mean Siphi's not useful. In fact, I regularly pick Siphi in live arena as well, but I have to keep in mind that because she doesn't have that speed aura, I do need to pay attention to what other auras the champions have and try to make sure I have a speed aura when possible, because even if my Siphi is one of my fastest champions, with a 30% speed aura and versus a 0% speed aura, we're talking a pretty big hit to how much extra speed I need to be able to make up for the fact that I don't have that aura. So Arbiter can be a very good pick. Other options can certainly be Armands, who a lot of people do still have. Armands is a very good pick early on. You get the speed aura, you get a lot of control out of Armands, plus you prevent the enemy team from getting an Armands. And if you think Armands is going to get banned, well, that's great. That means that he's going to get banned, and the other team is basically not going to ban anyone else. So having some ban fodder early can be very helpful as well. Fabian is actually another really good example. I've actually been leading off with Fabian quite a bit now. Fabian is very powerful. He does an awful lot as far as controlling the other team. He is hard to deal with for a lot of players, at least where this account is. And as a result, I think he's another good pick because a lot of people do have him because he was a recent fusion. So if people don't, so looking at recent fusions can certainly help. Looking at building a good team flexible structure can help. Looking at what champions are likely to be picked can help as well. And this is also going to depend on where you are in Arena. Lower end Arena, you're going to be picking login champs that are common. Recent fusion champs are very common. And to be fair, non-void rares or legendaries, I should say, or even epics. If occasionally epics show up in live arena, they're the ones that are going to be the most common. Mythicals are going to be much less common in lower end arena. Void legendaries are generally going to be less common because they're just harder to get. So if you're having to lean towards somebody leaning towards an affinity legendary that's common, or somebody that was a login champion, either a 7-day login or a champion you can get through a quest, so basically a freely accessible champion that anybody in the game can get, those are the kind of champions that are nice to pick kind of first. So say you've got your first pick, say I like to pick Fabian first, but the enemy team has picked Fabian. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I've got 2 picks, so I might take Armands because Armands provides a lot of similar buffs and setups to what Fabian does as far as he does the stripping and he does the lockouts. So I might pick him to be able to counter that. And then my second pick is either going to be another support that I think is going to be very common, or I might choose a damage dealer because I've built a support first. Here's the thing. One of the things that Live Arena is good for is figuring out how to counter other champions. So Armands is a great champ, but there are ways to counter him. And if I pick him first, well, that means you don't get Armands, but that also means that you have a longer time to counter Armands with the rest of your picks. So from that perspective, I'm giving away a little bit of my strategy by picking Armands here. It doesn't mean that I don't think he's more important to pick early, because he will go away if you're not careful on a lot of teams, but you don't necessarily, need to pick your strategy early. So for example, Teox, good champion, but he's got a lot of counters, and obviously you're going to struggle if you have a lot of don't have a lot of lizards. So I might not pick Teox right away. I might wait to pick him late. Torment is a good example. Torment is a great champion for live arena. Torment has a ton of counters. So if I picked Torment early, I give away the fact that I'm running Torment, and I can start making picks based off of whether or not I want to counter Torment. So if I see Torment on the other team, well, Siphi becomes a very easy pick for me to go. Plus, I've got damage dealers in Stone Skin, and if I don't have all my damage dealers in Stone Skin, I might start leaning towards damage dealers in Stone Skin, or people that are going to avoid freezes, like if I went with a Dark Elhane, not that I think Dark Elhane is really very viable in live arena, but she's an example of a champion that counters Torment passively, makes it very easy for me to deal with. Fabian actually can sort of deal with Torment for as well, because he'll just kind of blow off the freezes. So there's all kinds of ways to sort of deal with a Torment, but if I don't know that he's coming until the last or second to last pick, I can't pivot my strategy. So generally what you're looking to do is to pick champions early that are critical to your strategy, that either don't have a lot of counters or you don't think the enemy team has the counters, and champions that you're worried about either because you don't want to face them, and that's a reason to pick a champion, is I might pick a champion just because I don't want to face them on the other team, or they just help round out the team. So build it, as by the time I get to my third pick, I want to have grabbed a damage dealer if possible. It doesn't always work that way, particularly on this account, because I know I have a flexible amount of damage dealers. I often don't do that, but oftentimes grabbing a damage dealer early allows me to keep a support that might be able to react to somebody's pick better than if I'm on my last 2 picks and I have to pick 2 damage dealers at the end. That means that they might have a couple of champions that I could counter, but if I counter them, I'd only get 1 damage dealer, then they ban my damage dealer, and I'm in bad shape. So within your first 3 picks, especially if you have the first pick and then the second and third pick are happening as your second turn. You probably do want to take a damage dealer in your top 3. Again, otherwise, again, you're worried about people banning, so they've got Arbiter on their team. I might take Ostrid. So on this team here, where I say I'm not too worried about taking damage dealers, I don't see anything I'm really worried about countering over here necessarily. I might take Armand's number 1, and then I would do Sify and Ostrid. That gives me 2 champions with a really good speed aura. It gives me a chance to get at least 1 speed booster in Ostrid or Sify. And if they ban one of these 2, then I've got Armand's, which is great. On top of that, if I get all 3 of these things, then I'll have only 1 damage dealer. But then I can pick my 1 damage dealer and I'll be in good shape. So then finally, I would pick, a Mezamel and a Nell. Those are generally the 2 I tend to lean on because they give me a lot of flexibility in my damage dealing and support capabilities. But doesn't mean I wouldn't occasionally pick like a Harima instead of one of those 2. I could certainly grab Baron if I wanted to. Every once in a while, I'll take Thor out because Thor can go through block damage, can be very, very viable against some champions as well. There's all kinds of ways I might think about what I'm going to pick. So this is the speed strategy here, though, where we're talking about getting a speed or what else. What other champions might you choose to pick to counter another team? Well, Valkyrie is a good example of a champion that can counter a high buff team. Now, she's certainly fallen off quite a bit because she's certainly harder to build, and Stone Skin has certainly ruined her ability to control turn meter on the other team. But Valkyrie is a good example of a champion that you might choose to do a counter pick to somebody, because Valkyrie does still bring some interesting stuff, such as a counterattack and the really huge shield. She does a bunch of turn meter buffs, so you don't necessarily have to build her quite as fast because the other team is obviously going to buff themselves in some way, shape, or form, and she'll just kind of go faster as a result. Other champions that can be good for that sort of stuff, Xena is very good. Xena can help counter Sifis, for example, or anybody that does a lot of buffs. Obviously, she was a pay-to-win champion, so not a lot of people have her, but she's a good reactionary or later one that if you pick her later, people may not be able to pivot to be able to deal with. Sometimes it's a combo champion. Sometimes I want to deal with Harima, and so I might actually bring my Mikage as well when I can, because Harima and Mikage pair up very well, because Mikage's A1 will bring Harima in as well, and the ally attack is very nice for Mikage, so that can be very good. Plus Mikage does some of the strippage, she can be very helpful as well. But again, I want to make sure I have plenty of other counters. Alil is another option I could certainly bring in. So if I look at the other team and say they're going to have a champion on Stone Skin, I want to make sure they go away. Well, Alil, good champion to bring in. So if I'm really worried about this bomb champion here because I can't deal with bombs if he gets a turn, well, maybe I'll bring Alil in and bring a couple champions in that will boost him fast enough to be able to do his ignore Stone Skin, and then I know I can target this specific champion and get through and kill them. Mezamel gives me very similar flexibility, for example. There are Georgid as an option. There are plenty of champions now that have a single target ignore Stone Skin, so you can use those to target specific champions, particularly if they can counter them as well. Another one to think about is things like block revive. That's another reason Mezamel is very good. Mezamel's block revive, I can kill the Monkey King and he won't come back. At least he won't come back if he's reviving on his passive. Sometimes there's ways to revive him, otherwise, it depends. Especially if there's Lydia on the other team. Lydia can certainly ignore some of that block revive. There's issues with that as well. But overall, you are looking to build a team and basically look and build a 5-man team that works well when it can with each other. So speed boosting helps get you going faster. Champion enhancement, very good. Alil, for example, very good for getting buff. He gets a bunch of turn meter out of it. He gets a bunch of attack and 8 max HP when his attack goes up. So he can be very tanky. So he can be a very solid pick for a lot of people. Making sure you've got champions in Stone Skin can be very, very helpful, because as I said, I've got these 2 in Stone Skins. My Harima is not quite in Stone Skin, but to be fair, she doesn't necessarily need to be, especially if I've got some reaction gear on her. She's very tough and hard to kill anyway. So looking to kind of build a well-rounded team. So you're looking for, ideally two-ish speed champions, 2-ish damage dealers, sprinkle some supports in here and there, try to get 2 speed auras if you can. And again, if you don't want to go speed, you certainly don't have to go with a speed aura. But if you're going to go with an aura that's important for your team, make sure you have duplicates of that aura, or that the champion that you really is going to need that aura is the one with the aura, so if they get banned, you're not worried about it quite as much. So that's kind of a dive into some of the basic strategy for Live Arena. So you want to take your first picks that are going to be champions that are either going to be hot to make sure you get them, or you're worried that the other team might take them from you, or They're just generally good utility champions that you want to make sure that the enemy team has to worry about countering, and then save some of your later picks to make sure that you can react to some of the picks that they're making so you can counter them. If they bring some bomb champions, maybe you need to bring a high resist champion that can prevent the bombs from happening, or maybe some block debuffs would be very helpful as well. Stone Skin is great, but if you know that they're going to be able to nuke through your Stone Skin easily, then maybe you can bring champions that don't have Stone Skin and have other ways to stay alive. There's all kinds of things to think about with what your picks are, when you pick them, and where you pick them. So hopefully this has given you a couple of ideas at least to kind of organize your teams, kind of get an idea of what you want to do, and visualize the team that you're looking to make, and get a team that is fun for you in Live Arena. Now again, you're going to lose Live Arena fights. Just looking here at Live Arena, because it happens to be open, the battle log here, we go to leaderboards. You see here, I have a 56% win rate. I've got a good account, I know what I'm doing, and I'm not above 50%, but I'm not a lot above 50%. We go to the general, in fact, okay, I'm at 57% here. I got a lot of wins early on when I was significantly more powerful than anyone else. But even then, outside of some of these, top teams that have the 70 and 80% win rate, it's absolutely gross. You see here, we're starting to get to 60. Most accounts are going to gravitate towards 50% eventually, because at some point in time, they're going to find enough matches for you that are going to be balanced for you and the enemy to have a good fight, have it last long, not let's say long, but have it last long enough that you feel like, hey, I had a shot to win that fight. I got outfoxed by them. I got outsmarted by them. And occasionally I just got outlucked by them. That happens too. But just for Live Arena, keep in mind that losing is unfortunately part of it, and it's worth doing. These medals, these area bonuses are absolutely huge. I think these are going to be very useful. They are one of the best ways to make sure that your Hydra teams are doing amazingly well. So buying this sort of stuff here, in fact, I'm going to buy one right now. These help in Hydra a ton. This has made Nightmare Hydra possible with very minimal changes to the rest of my account just by getting some of these things in there. It's helped me. I've got a couple things for Demon Lords just to add a little bit of damage there a while ago. Fire Knight Hard was a problem for me for a while. These helped a ton, getting me a Fire Knight 10 team working properly. Ice Golem, I got some of the resistance here because Ice Golem is one of the few places I need a lot of resistance, and we got hard faction wars coming up. So these faction wars ones that are grade 1, so they're very, very low end, might be good to spam a bunch of these things to make your faction wars that much easier and that much faster. So there's all kinds of cool stuff coming down the road that's going to help make these area bonuses worthwhile. Plus, there's some really good gear you're getting in Live Arena, both in the seasonal rewards as well as the regular rewards. And Live Arena, can be fun when it's done right. I actually don't mind losing a fight that's very close. So hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. I really appreciate you guys hanging around. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. If you're ever interested in starting a brand new account, I've got a link down below. You can start that, get Rector Drath, and get an Ugo, and it's a great start to raid. Enjoy it, have some fun, enjoy some Live Arena, and until the next video, I'm Bront CatHerder.